In this video, we will discuss simple arrays and lists. Arrays are lists of items. You can store, access, modify, and manipulate them. This is very different to strings, which are sequences of characters. Arrays are mutable, meaning you can change them, while strings are immutable, meaning you can't change individual characters directly. So this lesson uses a food list to demonstrate the common array and string operations. So let's get started with creating an array. So I'm going to define a variable called foods, and we're going to create a new array that includes the string pizza, burger, sushi, and pasta. And we're going to print this and run it. And as you can see, it's created an array. So new array creates an array, and of course, console.log is going to print the foods array. So now let's try to access a single element. So let's console.log foods, and we're going to use the index of 0. So to access an element, you use the variable name of the array, and then 0 is actually the initial index of the array. You may think it's 1, so you want to use these brackets and put the number in between of the element that you want. So pizza is actually index 0, burger would be index 1, sushi would be index 2, and pasta would be index 3, and so on if we had more elements. So always remember that the first element in an array is index 0. So now let's try to get the length of the array. So we're going to get rid of this, console.log, and .length tells you how many items in the array. So the operator .length. So what we want to do is we want to use this variable again. And now we're going to print. So as you can see, this is printed 4. So that means there are 4 elements in the array, which is true. So that is how you access the length of an array. So next what we want to do is find an element's index. So I'm going to get rid of this. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to define a new variable. I'm going to say let sushi index, meaning we want to find the index of sushi, equals foods dot index of sushi. And we're going to run this. Actually, we're not, because we haven't printed it yet. Print sushi index. And this prints 2. And this is correct because we know that the index of sushi is 2 because pizza is 0, burger is 1, and sushi is 2. So index of finds the position of an element in the array. So now what we want to do is we want to replace an element in this array. So let's try to replace the third element. And we are going to replace them with tacos. And we're going to print this, and we're going to print the array. So as you can see, now it says pizza, burgers, sushi, tacos. So this assigns a new value to the index, that index of the array. So as you can see, pasta is now tacos. So next what we want to talk about is appending an element using push. So push adds an item to the end of the array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. So pasta will be the third element once again. And we're going to do foods.push salad. And we're going to console.log this. And as you can see, now there are 5 elements in this array, and salad is the last array because push adds an item to the end of the array. Now what we want to do is appending an element using array length. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this. Use foods, food dot length, and that equals ice cream. And we're going to console.log this. And as you can see, it prints ice cream at the very end. So this is the exact same thing as using push, but it's just a different way. It gives the next index for a new item, essentially. So the next thing we want to talk about is removing the last element using pop. So what we're going to do is we are going to remove this, and we're going to let removed food equal foods.pop. And we're going to console.log foods. And as you can see, pasta is now removed because pop removes and returns the last element. Sorry, removes it and then returns the array without the last element. So if we want to actually print out the last element, we can console.log removed food. And we'll run this. And as you can see, pasta, even though it is no longer in the array, it was the last food that was popped. So, and it's also part of this variable that we are now printing, so we are able to print pasta. So next what we want to do is we want to create a string using the plus equals operator. So we've discussed the plus equals operator in a previous video, but now I want to show how it can be useful with arrays. So we're going to say let food string equal an empty string. So we want to essentially, in this case right now, we want to concatenate the strings manually rather than doing it all in one variable or in one console statement. So we're going to do food string plus equals foods 0. So it's going to take the first element, which is pizza, and we're going to add plus and a comma. Then we're going to go to the next line. So right now, what this is doing is this is adding the first element with a comma in between the first element and the second element. So index 0 and index 1. So this will be represented like this, but as a string value. So I'm going to just copy and paste these two. And I am going to change the value here and here, but we do not need a comma at the end of this because, of course, there's no comma necessary after the final element. So we're going to run this. Actually, we're not going to run this. We're going to console.log this first. Forgotten that a few times. And we're going to run this now. So as you can see, it is no longer in an array, it is in a string. And pizza, burger, sushi, and pasta are all there. So next what we want to do is we want to create a string using the join operator. So I'm going to remove all of this. And we're going to do let food string equal foods dot join. So you may be wondering what this does. So join combines array elements into a string with a separator. So it takes this variable, so this array, and joins all the elements together in a string separated by a comma. So it's essentially a much concise and simpler way of doing what we just did with the plus equals operator. So I'm going to console.log this, and we're going to take food string, and we're going to run this. And as you can see, it prints pizza, burger, sushi, pasta, like the previous examples also did. So the next thing that I want to talk about is getting a substring of a string. So I'll show how to do this. So we're going to do let burger short equal foods of the first element, of course, dot substring 0, 3. So essentially what this means is it's going to take the first 3 letters of burger. So this is representing the starting part of the string, so 0, the first element, and then 3 is representing the end of the string, the part that we want to take, the chunk. So we're going to console.log this and print, and as you can see, it produces bur instead of burger because it starts at element 0 and goes to 3. So next what we're going to do is we're going to slice the array using the slicing operator, or slice operator. So I'm going to create a new variable, and we're going to do first 3 words. So we're going to do foods.slice 0, 3. So this will take the first 3 items, and we're going to console.log this, and first 3 words. And this will print out pizza, burger, and sushi. But let's say we want to also add 2 more items, for example. So I'm going to add another item here. I'll say let's add ice cream. And I'm going to let more food equal foods dot slice 3 to 5, and we're going to console dot log this more food, and we're going to run this, and it prints pasta and ice cream. So this takes the first 3 elements, this will take the last 2 elements. So that is how you use the slice operator in JavaScript for an array. So now let's try to remove an element using splice. So what we can do is we're going to remove all this, and we're going to do foods.splice. And what we're going to do is we're going to write the numbers 2 and 1. So 2 represents the start, and 1 represents the delete count. So this will remove 1 item, this means, at index 2. So this means that sushi should be removed when we print this. And as you can see, sushi is gone now because we have deleted 1 value at a starting index of 2. So let's say we wanted to do this. What do you think would happen? So it removes pasta because now it deletes 2 elements at a starting element or starting index of 2. So that is how you remove an element or multiple elements using splice. So next what we want to do is, instead of removing an element, we want to insert an element using splice. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this, but we're going to start at index 2, and write a value of 0, meaning that we do not want to delete an element. This is still representing deleting, and this is still representing the index. But now what we want to do is we want to add fries. So when we run this, fries will now be at element 2, and sushi will be pushed to index 3. So index 2 is fries, index 3 is sushi. So that is how you insert an element using splice. So the only difference between this and removing is that when you're removing, you need to include a value here. So we could still do this, but it would just remove sushi because that is the element beside where you are inputting fries. But we don't want to do that in this case. And it'll produce fries in the array. So this is obviously exactly the same as removing it. You're just adding the extra element in the array. So the last thing I want to talk about is, well, we just actually discussed replacing an element using splice. So we're gonna show this in another way now. So instead of one element, like I showed here, we're gonna replace 2. And as you can see, that outputs pizza, burger, fries, removes sushi and pasta, and keeps ice cream because sushi and pasta are the next 2 elements in the array after the inputted value of fries. So that concludes the video that we have just done on simple arrays and lists. I hope you enjoyed, and if you learned something new, please like and subscribe.